So we've all had decisions to make in the past, and they're not always easy. Decisions are oftentimes very difficult. I think we all know that. It could be a relationship decision, could be a new job, could be a career path, could be an education path. Shoot, I remember when I was trying to figure out what my bachelor's degree was going to be, and it took me over 2 or 3 months just to decide what the degree plan would be in, and then I changed directions multiple times. I had all these conversations with different people trying to figure out what direction I was going to go. So making decisions is not an easy thing. And often we find ourselves in a position that we are just taking too long to make a decision and we get very indecisive. And to be indecisive is kind of making the decision on its own. It's deciding to stay stuck. It's deciding to stay in the position that you don't want to be in for whatever reason, or you can't stay in for whatever reason. If you're in a job that you don't like, you don't want to stay in it, but you don't want to leave because you like the money or you like where you're at, you like familiarity, you like comfort. And so to make the decision to leave is really tough. And to which direction do you go? It's a very difficult decision to make. So just in general, people find themselves in a place where you're afraid to make a wrong decision. And I think it's how we craft that in our heads that can actually help us to move forward in our decision making process. Is that how do I look at this decision? Do I look at it as I can make a wrong decision, or do I look at it as whichever decision I make almost has to be a right one because it's informed to a certain degree, as long as I'm, doing all the right things in terms of talking to people and weighing my options and doing my research. I think it's tough to consider a decision wrong if you've done all of that. Despite maybe how it turns out, like you could make a decision that's fully informed and maybe it doesn't go the way you hoped it would. That's okay. That happens. Okay. It doesn't necessarily mean it was a wrong decision. That just means it was an informed decision. So maybe just how we craft the decision or how our perspective of the decision is the important thing to think about. So when you find yourself um, in a spot where you're afraid to make a wrong decision, it's a tough one to be in. So when you're there and you're trying to coach yourself through, or if I'm trying to coach somebody through that, there are some things I want to ask you. And some of them are outcome related questions. So the first one I would ask is, so what outcome are you truly afraid of? Right? So before you decide, or I'm sorry, before you start weighing options, when you look at those options, which ones are you really afraid of? Like the ones that you really don't want to happen. Okay. And that should easily be recognized as one that you can kind of set aside, say, yeah, I'm definitely, I don't want that to be the outcome of this decision. And that can help me weigh which direction my decision is going to go. So truly, what outcome are you afraid of happening? And that can help you craft a better decision the way forward. Um, the next question I would ask would be like, what does your future self want for you, or what would your future self wish you would do? If you were you in 5 years, where would you want to be, right? What would your future self say to you in terms of this decision-making process? It's a hard one to envision sometimes, but give yourself an opportunity to think about it. Maybe write down an answer to that to try and give yourself a good direction on that particular decision. What would the 5 year in the future version of yourself wish that you would do? And maybe that can help craft you in a good direction. And then really the next one kind of comes down to your enthusiasm level, right? So if neither decision or direction is wrong, right? Or none of the directions that you could go are wrong, which one really gets you jazzed up? Which one really gets you excited about that particular decision? Which one makes you the most excited and looking forward to the most, right? So those are important questions to ask when it comes to um, being too afraid to make a wrong decision, because we all often find ourselves in that position of not wanting to make a wrong decision, but forgetting that maybe I'm looking at this or should look at this in a different way. That maybe wrong isn't the right way to look at it. Maybe which decision is the one that excites me most if none of them are wrong. If any decision I made, as long as it was informed, is a quote unquote right decision, which one gets me jazzed up the most? Right. So think about these things, these three questions when it comes time to, or if you ever find yourself in a space where you're afraid to make a wrong decision, and just think of it as maybe wrong is not the right way to think about it. Maybe it's going to be right depending on how I look at it. All right. Thanks for watching and have a great day.